That's not an iPhone, is it? That's right, I'm reviewing an electric Porsche. This job does have its perks. I've wanted to review an EV, or electric vehicle, for quite a while now. I just never thought the first one would be I never thought it would be a Porsche. Sorry, firstly, let's get the name right, Porsche. I promise, I'll try and get through the rest of this review by pronouncing Porsche correctly. But I do want to say a huge thanks to Porsche in Reading for basically putting their trust in a guy who normally reviews laptops and iPhones. But bearing in mind this is my first ever EV, I've never driven an EV before, and the fact that this particular Taycan, well, I'll tell you the price of it in a moment, but the fact that this particular car is a very expensive EV leaves me with lots of questions. So in this video, I want to see what you get if you spend a shed load of money on an EV. Also, what is the EV experience actually like? And crucially, what sort of tech do you get in these kind of cars? Right, let's reel off the specs. So this is a 2022 Taycan. It features a 2-speed automatic power unit that delivers 380 horsepower or 476 horsepower with launch control. It's rear-wheel drive with a permanent magnet synchronous PSM motor on the rear axle. It's got Porsche recuperation management. There's also a range mode when you want to get more out of the tank or the battery. And in this particular car, there is a 79.2 kilowatt hour battery. It's got a 22.5 minute minimum charge time, and you get just over 300 miles from a full charge. The boot space is 407 litres, and there's also a second boot, or a front boot, whatever you call it, which has 84 litres. Now this particular spec, you'll have noticed the colour for starters, that is the Frozen Berry Metallic. This one also has the Performance Battery Plus, it's got the Sports Chrono package, 20-inch Taycan Turbo Aero wheels, and loads of other stuff. The PDF they sent me is just absolutely huge. And the price of this particular car, completely configured and on the road, is £86,235, so I really better be careful with it. Right, let's talk about tech, because that's what I'm all about. It's what you're probably really interested in. Just like most brand new cars, the Porsche Taycan has Android Auto and CarPlay compatibility. But the best thing as an iPhone owner who has always had to plug his phone, first world problems, into his car to get CarPlay working, this one has wireless CarPlay. Having said that, the Porsche onboard in-car entertainment system is actually pretty good. And you get 3 screens to play with, which is quite nice. The first one is this great big curved 16.8-inch screen behind the steering wheel. And as you'd guess, that gives you all the important stuff like your speed and how much battery charge you've got left. And the speed is housed within what they call the power meter, which gives you your miles per hour, obviously, or your kilometers per hour. And to the left of that, you get the recuperation. I love that name. It's the word that Porsche uses for regeneration. So when the car brakes, which either you do manually or you can set it to do automatically, it regenerates some of the battery. And that's one of the things that you learn quite quickly about these EVs. Everything within the car, well, not everything, but a lot of the things that are built into it from a tech perspective are designed to get as much battery power as possible, and crucially help reduce that foreboding sense of battery anxiety. And the cool thing about this dash screen is that you can change all 3 elements to display the information you want. So on the left you can have your assistance systems, traffic signs, G-force, which is really cool, and where that power meter is in the middle, you can change that to be the map, an extended map, or a reduced map. And that's where the integration with Google Maps is really smart. You get this very nice, detailed, sharp image from Google Maps. And then to the right of the power meter you have another section that you can customize, so you can have more navigation detail in there, and then information, which I think is the thing that most people will set that to, because crucially it tells you how much battery charge you have remaining. The other screen that we have is a more standard recognizable screen in the middle of the dash, which gives you your currently playing media, the map for navigation. Below that we have another screen, this is the 3rd screen, which sits beneath the heater, and it mainly controls the climate control system. And then there's this kind of weird trackpad type thing, a bit like a trackpad that you get on a laptop, which is intended to give you control over the main screen. I'll be honest, it feels a bit strange. It doesn't feel particularly intuitive. It's also got cameras all around the car, so you get your rear parking camera as normal, which is fantastic, but you also get a kind of bird's eye view of your car when you're parking, which isn't a gimmick. It sounds gimmicky, but when you start using it, it just makes sense straight away. So big fan of that, big fan of the wireless CarPlay stuff. The interior It's nice. It's not, like I say, knock your socks off, but it's a nice place to be. Incidentally, this exact car set an unofficial world record this summer when What Car magazine travelled through 14 countries in 24 hours. I'm just going to look at this from a normal bloke's perspective, so let's get on with it. Now it's time for a new experience. I've got a petrol car, so normally I completely ignore charging stations, but now I need to find one and actually charge this thing. And I won't lie, I'm slightly nervous about it. Like most EVs, the Taycan has built in a dedicated charger finding thing into its sat-nav. So let's give that a test. Now I'm in the middle of nowhere in Warwickshire. So this is the first time I've done this. It's completely off the cuff. It's a very good test of the Taycan navigation system. But I guess if we go into here and then into find destination, yeah, it looks like we've got a little icon here for charging. So go there. That will give us all the charging stations nearby. I'm not sure how they're ordered. That's interesting. It's not by distance because we've got 5.3, 4.5, 5.1. I don't think it's by the power either because, yeah, we've got 50 kilowatts, 25, 50. So I'm not sure how this is ordered. There are quite a few around here. And I know that this little thing here where it says 2 out of 4, that's the number of charging stations currently available. I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to pick a random one here. Let's just go for the top one. For some reason, it's listed this one, ESB E-Cars in De Montfort Way in Coventry, as the first one. So let's assume that's the one to go for. So according to the sat-nav, it is 5.3 miles away and 12 minutes. So let's get driving. So it did successfully get me to a charging point, and it's a rapid electric charging point that you can see here. However, I've never charged an electric car before, so I've got no idea what I'm doing. So the Taycan has 2 of these charging ports on either side of the car, but this one on the passenger side has 2. So it's got the main AC one here, but also, if you flip this down, a DC charger, and that is the fast charger. So that's what I'm going to try and use now. Welcome. Okay, start. To start, press any button. Okay. And I want to do contactless. Please tap your card on the reader below. Can use my Apple Watch. No, there, maybe. Ah, no, that's actually for a charging card. Ignore that. Okay, so let's start again. Oh, is it not accepting cards? Are you joking? No, so it's not accepting cards. Okay, is the other one accepting cards? I can't use it because someone else is using it. So, okay, plan B. I know there's a card somewhere. There's some kind of charging card. Aha! I do have some kind of card. Right, press any button. Here we go. Try again. Tap your card there. Checking the card. We want CCS, which is the fast one. So let's choose that. Plug in the cable. Okay. Please reach, please reach, please reach. Okay, it's plugged in. Do I need to turn the car on? Connecting. Also, a light has come on the car, which I presume is a good thing. Right, here we go. So battery is at 36%. Is it charging now? I thought it would say charging. I thought there'd be something in here. Ah, there is something in there. There is a little charging notification light there. Right, I think I found it. Excuse all of the smudges on. It's a very fingerprinty screen, by the way, but we'll let that go. But on here, there's a little battery icon. If we press that, that shows me the battery percentage, when it was last charged, and I think this is basically the juice it's getting from that charger. So we're getting 45 kilowatts. Also, there's a car next to me that was being charged when I got here. The guy's just got into the car and he's been sat there for quite a while. And I just thought maybe he's wondering what on earth this guy next to him's doing, talking to a camera by himself. But then I realised, no, he's probably waiting for his car to finish charging. But that's why these charging stations aren't located next to petrol pumps. They're always in supermarkets like this one is, or they're in a car park in a service station. They're normally near a coffee shop or near a retail park. They're somewhere where you can go off and do your stuff while your car charges. Again, all this stuff is probably obvious. If you've got an EV, you're probably still shouting at your phone. But remember, I am a first-time EVer, and I'm finding this stuff fascinating. Let's talk performance while we're waiting for this thing to charge, and as you might suspect, the Porsche Taycan is rapid. And this £86,000 Porsche is admittedly one of the pinnacles of EVs, but most EVs are pretty quick. And the reason they feel so quick is because there's so much torque. As soon as you put your foot down, it picks up and goes. This Taycan does 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. That is quick for a very big, very heavy car. And what's most impressive is that power delivery is at pretty much any speed. So if you're doing 30 miles an hour and put your foot down, it just goes like the wind. And if you're doing 65 miles an hour and put your foot down, it goes like the wind. In terms of the ride, it is very comfortable. Although you can tell it's a Porsche, there is definitely a sport element to this. It knows how to go around corners. I won't have this car long enough to get used to the range that you can get out of the batteries, but when we look at what car did in the summer, you know, doing 14 countries in 24 hours, I know they had to keep charging, obviously, but it got through that pretty impressively. And roughly 300 miles out of a single charge is really impressive stuff. Something else I'm a little bit wary of when it comes to these EVs is the charging station discussions. I've heard from EV owners that you quite often get into conversations with other EV owners at charging stations. To me, that sounds pretty horrendous. It sounds like the whole water cooler thing that happens in offices. A guy has just pulled up to plug his car in, and I know that if I get out now, he'll start talking to me. I'm sure he's a lovely chap, but I just have no interest in talking about EVs at EV charging stations, so I'm just going to stay in the car. So this car that I showed you earlier that I used to get this charger going is part of the Porsche charging service. And this gives you access to those 270,000 charging points. That service costs £179 a year. But if you buy a Porsche Taycan like this one, you get it free of charge for 3 years. But it does give you discounted access to these chargers, which means you pay 30p per kilowatt hour, which is roughly half the price of what you'd normally pay on pay-as-you-go. Okay, so there's still no estimated cost here. It's telling me I've got 92% battery now after 67 minutes. To me, that sounds quite good. I think that sounds like a fast charge to me. You can tell I'm a first-time car reviewer, can't you? I've had a very quick read of the letter that Porsche give you when it comes to the charging of this car, and basically, they pay for it. So I've got no idea how much that cost me, and again, thank you Porsche for the free electricity. Whoa. That was close. Basically, on the way back to Porsche, I had 28 miles to travel and 33 miles left on the battery. And feeling slightly brave and slightly stupid, I thought, I can make that. And everything was going fine, absolutely hunky-dory, until I got about 7 miles from Porsche, and I suddenly had 5 miles left in the battery. And I think I'd been putting my foot down a little bit too much on the way back, and possibly, I wasn't breaking the law by the way, but the main point being is that I was in desperate need of a fast charger. I found one, thankfully, but unfortunately there was a car there already, and well, the guy there had been there for 2 hours already. It was charging very slowly apparently, and he was miles from home, about 2 or 3 hours from his destination apparently. So I left the car park with 5 miles in the tank, the battery, whatever. Basically got to the point where I was panicking because I couldn't find on the Porsche sat-nav any other fast charging points or any charging points nearby. Now, I've never run out of petrol in my entire life, touch wood, so this was my first experience of pulling up by the side of the road and thinking, I may not get to my destination. And more embarrassingly, I was thinking, I'm gonna have to ring Porsche and explain this. And then I'm gonna have to come on this video and explain all of that to you. What happened next was fairly serendipitous really, because I don't know, well, I just thought I have no choice. I have to get back in the car and hope there's a charger down the road. So for some reason, I got back in the car, drove down the road, and just happened to spot a Lidl, which in the UK is a supermarket chain. Lo and behold, they had a fast charger in the car park. There was a guy there already charging his car, but thankfully he'd finished, so I pulled up, plugged in the Porsche, and got some juice back. So what has this experience with the Porsche Taycan taught me? Well, quite a few things. Firstly, the car is absolutely amazing. There's no doubting that for me personally, it is a aspirational car. £86,000 is a lot of money. You get all of the Porsche prestige, you get the performance, which is fantastic. And remember, this isn't even the S model or the turbo model. This is your bog standard normal Taycan, and it's quick enough for anyone. There's something about the effortless power that you get from that electric motor that is mesmerizing. I love the design as well. I know it's a Marmite thing really, but there's a lot of presence with this car. It's a very impressive piece of kit. It looks classically Porsche, but equally modern and futuristic. It is a very big car. If you're considering one of these, I would recommend, well, you'd take it for a test drive anyway, but I would recommend getting a feel for how big it is. It's also an incredibly easy car to drive. People were telling me about engine braking beforehand, and firstly, on the Porsche, that isn't turned on by default. On a lot of EVs, you don't really use the brake pedal. You take your foot off the gas and the car slows itself down for you, but it's not turned on by default, so you don't have to get used to that. You can just drive it like a normal automatic. But if you combine all of that stuff, the ride, the performance, the interior, the comfort, it is the dream motorway cruiser. If you've got that budget and you do a lot of motorway miles, if that was me, I would get a Taycan tomorrow. But what about the overall EV experience? Well, it was eye-opening. You've heard about my perilous trip back to Porsche, but that wasn't really the thing that bothered me the most. What did bother me was on the second day of filming when I was working with Andy and Rob from Pulse 8 Media, who did the fantastic B-roll for this video. Basically, we got about halfway through the day and we needed to put some more juice in the car. And that meant finding a fast charger somewhere nearby. So I used the Porsche sat-nav, which in fairness to it, did find a number of chargers. The first one was a fast charger on the side of a petrol station. That apparently hadn't been working for years, we were told by the shop attendant. So we went to another one, which was locked behind a gate because it was owned by a company. We then went to Tesco's, I think, and they had one, but it wasn't fast. It was a very, very slow charger. And then we went somewhere else where we couldn't park the car in the right spot because someone else was using the other side of the charger that we needed. You have this thing where you've got to find, firstly, a working fast charger. Secondly, one that is vacant, that doesn't have someone at it already. And then you need to find one where you can park on the right side of it to get the DC cable in. And in our experience on that day, finding that perfect scenario is pretty much impossible. Now, there's a huge caveat here, which is that I am a complete novice with EVs, as I mentioned at the start of the video. Andy and Rob were the same, and all of us were a bit surprised by how much pre-planning you need to do. But none of this is the fault of the car. It doesn't matter what EV you're driving, you have to have some experience, or at least spend some time looking into how to run an EV before heading out on the road and expecting to treat it like a petrol car. I really want to dig more into this EV experience, so this won't be my last EV review, and I'd love to know, what EV would you like me to look at next on this channel? Let me know in the comments.